I'd like to do the same thing. I'm going to do a podcast with my coach this weekend because he's coming out to LA to hang out. So
Is that chap that does the kind of rock stroke classical crossover stuff?
yep,
Yeah,
yep,
yeah. I actually read about him on your website. I'd never come across him before, and I checked out quite a lot of his stuff on the on YouTube, and it was really good, man. His
yep,
I love the way he approaches the classical stuff as well, because
yes.
it's not too it's not too kind of overly darkened, I guess you'd
Well,
say.
that he's from the school. I mean, he studied with Rigopola, who was Pavarotti's coach. He
Yeah.
studied, so he knew Pavarotti. They would hang out, every once in a while when he would be there. And he studied with Gianni Raimondi, who's a very famous tenor. Now, if you listen to those tenors, Pavarotti, Raimondi, he actually studied with Wussman too, who Wussman was Pavarotti's accompanist for 20, 30 years, whatever it was. So if you listen to those singers like Raimondi and Pop, they don't overly dark. That's not the way they were taught.
Yeah.
That overly darkened thing it just started coming up because people wanted to sound like Corelli. They wanted to sound like Delmonico. So and you can do it, but you can either do it well, maybe you've got that voice that can steel voice, like I call it. Like you got a voice of steel, and you can do that, or it's going to wreck you.
Yeah, or it kind of sounds almost a little bit contrived if it's too manipulated.
Yep.
That's the thing, like you say, Pavarotti and some of these guys that do it the right way, it's dark and more than pop, but it's just enough. It's not so much that it starts to sound like odd, I guess you'd say. I kind of say it that way because we had there's a few shows that we've had at work recently with classical singers, and the tenor there just so like the just superly everything's like dark, like it's like, oh my word. Do you know you need some balance in the frequency? Like you got to have some brightness in there, or it just sounds dull. You know,
But
it's like, but yeah. I mean, I get the opposite criticism as people say I sing too bright, but the idea is like you can take it a little one way or the other, but it's like if it goes too far one way or the other, it starts to either get obnoxious and annoying sounding, or it starts to sound like dull. You know. And that's the tendency I feel like with a lot of those classical singers. And back to the guy that you're working with coaching wise, he's got a very good example of that. Nice, it's like darkened, but it still sounds like him. You know, it still sounds natural.
and if you were ever to be in a room with him, I've been in a room with him many times, and even at like when he's done little master classes that we've set up, I told like people that I knew I said, got to come to this, come see him teach because it's really cool. And they would come, and I'd watch their eyes, like when he starts one scale, just gonna do a scale, whatever it is, 5-tone, whatever it may. And I watch their face because they never heard a voice, because I had never heard a voice like that. And I met some people from the Met, but I've been around some real tenors, some real baritones, also great gospel singers from all the wedding bands I play with. There's some really killer gospel singers that I've got, I just like, I cry after the gigs. I go home like, oh my God, they were so much louder than me, and just blah, blah, blah. And man, him in a room, his voice, and you never see any strain on the face, nothing.
No, yeah,
Starts here, but it sounds like, and I'm not exaggerating this is the only way I can describe it, like there's a speaker 4 feet in front of him blasting it that way. And you look at him, I watch everyone's eyes. This is what happens. They'll go, whatever it may be. And you see this, you see. Can't imagine, like,
yeah,
you're teaching the girls and they'll Alicia Keys tune or something, and it's just the same place. It's like, you almost got to go, geez. And he's what? He's actually he's not pushing. That's not, where his school comes from, but it's the way that squealo rings, and it's that old school thing that I always thought I knew what it was until I actually got in the room with someone that did it. And I was like, I'm not even a singer at this point. I was like, it's insane. As far as technically, his technical singing is, I've never met anyone like it.
yeah. It's weird when you come across those kind of freaks. They can reset your mind some, because you kind of think like you know what good singing is based on records and stuff, but when you hear the difference in a room, like a lot of the time where I work, I hear live singers all the time, and many of them are very very good, but
Mhm.
there's just a difference. And the funny thing is, some people are getting paid to sing not that well, and then other people are getting paid the same amount to sing exceptionally well. But as a you wouldn't necessarily even notice unless you'd notice people get drawn more in by it. But if you ask people to explain like what's the difference, they won't really be able to say. They'll just kind of feel like, well, it just sounds better. Like explaining like why is that, and a lot of the time it can be real small things. Like it's like the power doesn't come from making it really thick and dark and heavy. The power comes from like how much can you get engaged on that horizontal even if it's like a whatever type of sound it is.
Yeah.
That kind of healthy squeeze is what gives you the that sense of real genuine type of volume that's not pushed. But people seem to confuse that sometimes with the with making it really dark and thick and heavy. But there's
Yeah. I
like
mean,
not much foundation beneath it. Sometimes
yeah.
it's like, yeah, it's dark and heavy, but it's not it doesn't have that thick full kind of quality that happens when you hear someone compressing in just the right kind of way, even if they're doing it on a bright sound. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's it's just when you speak with him, he gets pretty disgusted looking around him and his wife. His wife was a famous, very his wife sang at the Berlin Opera, I believe it was, like right out of college, like
Mm.
as a soprano, like she was like really legit in that world, and they moved there, and when I talk to him, because I've seen him with bronchitis, he could still do it. It doesn't matter, and I say how, like how can it, and he'll just go, he always like just goes, it's all about the appoggio, it's all about that, it's all about the.
Mm.
I'm like really, and he's like telling me, he'll say it every time. It's all about the lean, gotta lean. It's all about the lean.
Yeah, it's funny, as well. Do you feel like I feel like as well that people see some people that get almost the same results
Mhm.
seem to they seem to explain what's happening sometimes in quite different ways. They tend to say, "Well, I'm focusing on this," and the other singer might say, "I'm focusing on that." Some people say, "I'm focusing on what's going on here." Other people say, "Like, no, this you need to forget about this," and it's like, how do you navigate all of that? Because
Everyone's got
it's
their own thing, right? Because
mm,
like my buddy Joe Retta, who I put up a million times on all the forums, like try to get people to know who he is.
mm,
He's just a singer from, he grew up being a singer. He never took a lesson, and you don't want to mess with that dude. I mean, Jesus, he does
yeah,
Sipe, he does the Dio tribute. So you go, okay, everyone loves Ronnie James Dio, right? In the rock world, he's the premier singing. Joe does Dio as good as Dio. Like that's. But then I go see him do a little trio called Joe Mama, doing all Stevie Wonder hits, Shaka Khan, and he does it all. Like no problem. And then he does a Bad Company tribute, and then he was
mm,
Queen Nation, and then he did his own band, Heaven and Earth, amazing. Like he sings amazing. Never had a lesson, you know. Every time, well, Joe, what do you
yeah.
feel? He just goes, I don't know, man. I just sing, I just feel, I just sing. What's the word? What's the word that you're singing? That's it. And I'm like, come from where guys like me guys like you and I come from. I wasn't a natural singer. I did get involved in a gig where I had to kind of learn how to manage it better because I was losing my voice and not making any money. I was in my later 20s, and there was no teach. I didn't have a teacher. I couldn't afford a teacher, and I got this gig where I was getting paid well, but I was subbing out every other gig to my
Oh
sub,
man.
two subs. This kid Raj and this kid John, both amazing singers. And they were almost making more money than me because I'd sing too, blown out for a week. And I didn't want to sing on that blown out voice like some people do. But I knew I was like, no, so find some Seth Riggs tapes. Someone gave me those. I remember having the cassette of it.
Yeah, because this is a while ago, man. I'm assuming like
Yeah, yeah.
just and this actually takes us into the first thing that I put up here, which is life on the road. So let's just carry on with this. Like
Yeah.
you like you say this. What does a singer do in that situation? And back then, like you didn't have the internet to go search. Like you basically had probably Seth Riggs and like maybe a handful of books and stuff. Like
Yeah.
almost not very little to draw from, and you couldn't get lessons on Skype, for example. So Like, how did you navigate that successfully? Because now it's easy in comparison to find like all sorts of good information relative to that time.
I'll say exactly what it was. I think that because then I found a place like with my voice where I was like, okay, I got this, and I kind of rode that line. If I blew it out, it wasn't that bad. You know what I mean? I was like, okay, I got this. I knew instinctively not to yell because, I was singing. Um, I was singing disco, 70s disco. Gloria Gaynor, Donna Summer, Casey and the Sunshine Band, and it was in the original keys, a half step down from all the original keys. So it was pretty much the original keys, and I was singing these songs, and I found a place that worked for me. And I think before I moved from California, I was a guitar player. Before I moved to California to Connecticut back to, and then I got the audition in New York. I studied with a lady twice. Her name was Gloria Rush, and she's passed away. And I just went to her because I saw some singers in LA. There was a gazillion teachers out there back then, but I couldn't afford it. So I was like, I found her and I said, well, I'm moving back home. I'm just going to go get a couple of warm-ups or something from this woman because some of the people on her site that she said she helped, I liked. And I saw her sing. She was a jazz singer. She was really good. So I was like, okay, legit, I'm going to her. The two things that she gave me one of them I still use this day, one of them I'll still use for my students once in a while, is yodeling. We used to do an exercise that went, ah, 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 ah. Just, that was an exercise. We'd go all up and down, like you'd yodel to your chest, and once you felt even yodeling kind of in your chest, both times, like a little bit lower, I'd yodel, and then one note in falsetto, one note in chest, then both notes in falsetto. It was like that kind of, and then just a falsetto, ooh and e falsettos, all over in falsetto, and those two exercises are what, and because I still do them this day. I think if I was to say, how did you manage doing 4 or 5 nights a week? When I got to Chicago doing it, we do 13 days, 22 days in a row, sometimes 2 gigs a day. I wasn't losing my voice anymore. Mm-hmm. And I made sure I made that money. And all I could say was, I did those exercises every day, falsetto type stuff. And then when I went to sing, I said, just don't be ugly about it. I said, don't be ugly. So, it came to a wide splatty thing. I was like, I know that sounds stupid and it's not going to work. Maybe at the end of the night I could yell a big note, but try to keep it contained. And I think I had a video called Singing to a Baby on my YouTube that it's still up. But that was my mentality. If I was to sing to a baby, how would I do it and not flip? So I kind of taught myself that, and then that gig, from doing that gig and moving, because I had to move to Atlanta to do it and start a band down there, I found the premier vocal coach there, because now I'm making money. So then Then I moved to Chicago, found that coach, and then when I got back out to LA, floodgates. I studied with, you saw on my site, it's like, I've studied with everyone. And became friends with some really good teachers like Dave Stroud and Seth. I was really good friends with Seth. He was super cool. And then Joel Ewing and Nate Lamb, and like just so many to even go down the list.
Once you've, I've got a friend and she used to lose her voice a lot of the time. There's some videos that I've got on my channel of her teaching her, but she would, when I met her a few years back, she was like one and done. She'd be sore throats like whenever she was singing, and we did a little bit of work. It took me a while to kind of convince her, but and it took her a while to get some results. But once she started to notice, I can sing now for like a bit longer than I used to be able to. Like I can maybe do 2 or 3 shows in a row, like 3 days in a row, and my voice, I don't blow it out. And once you get the bug for that, and you see, like, there's actually a way forward, then all of a sudden, like, you get this drive, because you realize I can figure out a way to sing every day and not have to deal with this like nightmare of having to just, because really when you're going beyond your ability and your technique isn't there yet, you're just gonna get all sorts of like, hoarseness, I guess you'd say, like all the time, because there's just that you're trying to do something that the muscles are not coordinating to do, and so the chords get irritated constantly, and all you can do is either get better at the technique, or you can rein in, take the keys down, maybe flip or that kind of thing, and so you got those two options, and luckily for you, you took the right option, which was to get better.
Yeah, I just kept on. I knew that I didn't have it down right. I mean, if I was to describe my career as a singer, I moved up here. I live in San Luis Obispo. It's beautiful. There's not a lot of work here, and I don't want to play. I want to play with really good bands still, so I just wait. When I get calls still to do, and I have to drive a long way, to do these other gigs. But what I will say is, yeah, how was I going to put this? How am I going to put this? And everybody has different, let's say, vocal cords. I learned this from watching my cords on scopes, going to doctors so many times. I've lived a life of hoarseness, let's put it that way. Because it's very rare that I'm fresh. How can I ever be fresh? Because these gigs are not, even when I would show my gigs to Alex, he's like, that's a lot of singing, man. And he's as good as he is saying that we don't do that. Like, you sing, you do maybe an hour and then you rest. That's it. Well, that's not what guys like me and you. First of all, I'm studying. I'm waking up worried about my voice. Now what am I going to do? So I'm worried about my voice. So I'm starting to warm it up. I got to start teaching. Now I'm teaching and I get excited, probably like you do too, and I see everything the kid or the girl, the guy wants to sing. Now
you get dragged into their head, and you're like, and then you'll go later on. Yeah, I try to resist that as much as I can, but you can't teach. You can't teach as well unless you kind of get mentally dragged into it sometimes, and so it's tricky. Yeah, I've heard Brett talk about this.
I'm pulling back now. I'm pulling back. I'm not singing as much. I don't feel like I have to prove myself. It's like, geez, I made my life singing, my living. That's how I make my living. So this teaching is not singing to me. It's teaching. So I'm pulling back on that. But then when I wasn't, then I'm got to go, now I got to eat dinner and I got to go to work. And work is playing from 8 to midnight, from 9 to 1. And it's singing everything from, if I showed you my set, like a set list with my trio, it's everything from Bruno Mars to Journey to STP to whatever. You know what I mean? So, and then, I got to do the same thing again the next night. And now I'm older now, but I don't want to be the fuddy-duddy, right? I can't be the fuddy-duddy in the corner and be like, I can't talk on the mic. And you can't be on the mic and be timid. Now, I'm a performer also. Probably that's what's gotten me more work, I think, than my voice. I think it's just let's have fun, everybody. Everyone's here to have fun. So you do that, shot, drink. That's going to take that down. Some guys steal vocal cords, like I say. Shot, cocaine, smoke some cigarettes. It don't matter. I know. It don't.
Yeah.
And after seeing my chords on scope and then seeing other pictures of other vocal cords, all normal. When I was resting, I went to her. I noticed, I said, how come I have so many veins? She goes, well, some people have the vessels. You can see the vessels in the cords, right? You can see it, and I go, they look healthy. She goes, oh, you're very healthy, 49-year-old guy. Your cords look great for as much singing as you've done. You're doing really well. Oh, great, that makes me feel well. Let me see some other cords. I start looking at these other cords. I'm like, how come they're so white? Like, there's not a lot of, no, they don't have. And these people have more, I don't know if you want to call it collagen or whatever's in that. The vessels aren't coming to the top, so they can beat on them a lot more and never, all they need is that 5-6 hours of sleep at night and they're fully rested. Other people don't have that. I said, I led a life of hoarseness. It's true. Like, I wish I could have made it better. I couldn't have. I still try to make my, tell you what, I didn't stop taking vocal lessons. I'm still studying. So it's not like I haven't tried, but you come to a realization like, I'm the pitcher in the ball game that can only throw good for about 2 games. And then they got to bring in the other dude, But man, I'm better, I'm faster, I can really whip that ball, I'm doing well. But my arm gets tired quicker because the muscle makeup of our bodies, the cartilage, the muscle, that all plays. Yeah. I don't care what any. That's why I used to get very mad at vocal coaches saying, "Come to me, you can sing for 8 hours." Well, no, you can't. No, you
depends what you're singing.
And it also depends on that makeup. Like I look at my buddy Joe Reddit, I'm like, "You've got vocal cords of steel, man. You do anything."
And I mean, it depends what you're singing as well. If you're singing kind of mid-range country songs all night, yeah, you can sing forever. But
Right.
if you're singing Bruno Mars' Journey, for hours and hours, night after night, that's complete. I mean, that's the difference between, jogging around at a fair pace or versus being a gymnast. What I mean? It's a vast difference. It's not the
Yeah.
same thing at all. So
And
it's
yeah, it's a combination of that and your makeup. How much can it withstand? Your body withstand? How many times? I mean, you see, I love sport, boxing and MMA. Like one guy can get knocked out very easily. Oop,
yeah,
chin goes down. Another guy, bam, bam, bam. He's like, come on, let's go. It's like
yeah,
how like different makeup in the person. And back to the whole thing we were talking about, like longevity or whatever. Keeping your falsetto, I think, is longevity. If you can keep your falsetto, and I tell all my friends that are professional singers like that, like some professionals that call me that I played with and sang with, like, dude, my voice starting to go because we're all getting older, and they're a few years older than me maybe, and they're like, what should we do? I go, just do it every day. Wake up, do it. Do it at night. Just do it. I personally think that was my secret. I don't know. Technically, I could be full of shit. I don't know.
No, I think it's good, man, because this. I
Yeah.
mean, I do this light work all the time, every day. First thing I do in the morning when I wake up is like something just like, and just go down to chest, and it's like just find something that is just easy to coordinate. That's it helps to every day to reinforce the pattern of release in the voice, and you can make it sound however you want later on, but the idea is like you say, it's like you've got to find something that's just that helps to keep in the mind this idea of taking the right pathway upwards, like, and it's not necessarily easy to find when you got to go 100 miles an hour and sing full out straight away. Like it's easier to find just without all that baggage at first. You might just find it on something falsetto, something light, just to,
Yeah.
especially for guys as well. I think probably
Like
more so for guys.
whereas my coach, he won't. He does do falsetto. That we do have. We've done. He does do it, but I've watched him warm up for a seminar, and how come he didn't do falsetto? Because I don't have enough time. But so for him, I say, how do you keep your voice so healthy? He goes, Appoggio.
Yeah,
100%. Every single time I ask him, he says, my support is there. My
and
support
I
is there.
think
You know.
yeah, I think for some people as well, they have in the first time they learned it correctly, and so they've only got one pattern in their mind. Their whole life they've had one pattern, like the connection between their mind and the chords has been the right pattern, the right connection. So that wiring was correct the first time it was installed, but for someone like me, the wiring was incorrect. So I have to always counter that old memory
Yep.
of that old habit that was wired from just push above middle C. So that is like it dwindles away over the years, but
Right.
there's in my mind there's like it's like there's two people, almost two singers, less so nowadays, probably this year a lot less, but certainly for the last 5 or 6 years it's like I've been two singers desperately wanting to be this one singer on this side, but those old memories, or especially under pressure, like my mind wants to drag me back there always, and so that the kind of constantly reinforcing that pattern of release helps me to drift away from that old habit. But I think this is a specific issue that people like me have versus people that learnt it the correct way first time, because that just won't exist for somebody that's learnt it correctly the first time, because they'd have their old memory is just release. That's all they know, and so they don't have this same need to keep establishing the right pathway all the time, and so they can get away. I mean, it's like can feel like a cancer you're trying to get away from. Like really, it can. And yeah, it's interesting. I think I've got a friend called Jeremy who's a natural singer in the sense that he kind of learned it the right way first time. And I kind of asked him questions before, and sometimes you can get this kind of look of like don't know. I don't know what you're talking about. I just do it, because they've only know it one way, so they've got no means of comparison. I think that's why it can be very hard for some of these really gifted singers to explain it, because they've got nothing to compare great singing to. They don't know what it's like to suck, what it's like to struggle, what it's like to not be able to squeeze in the kind of right way. So it's yeah, I think it's one thing that's kind of really liberating being a voice coach is you've got a sense of comparison, what it's like to struggle, what it's like to not struggle, and so you can kind of figure out like where is somebody on that spectrum. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, that kind of. So in terms of just to finish up with the live stuff,
Okay.
do you feel like that the technical work you did was, like you said, the falsetto and finding those kind of finding that release and the coordination up there? And this kind of does take us into the next topic is the idea of just basic voice skills, like those kind of simple things that can really help a singer to establish the right types of habits, and how much of a kind of cascading effect they can have on almost everything else. I've actually put a video up just today of a student I've got who he was saying to me, all I've done since I last saw you was just like a gee 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 on a heady sound, and I've just done that over and over again. And he said, just that, everything else has become easy just a result of doing that one exercise.
Yeah.
And it's similar to what you've expressed, but sometimes I guess the question would be how do you get across to people in terms of the way you do things, how important it can be just to get some simple things that work, and try and get across to somebody like how those simple exercises can help them, and how they can apply to actual practical singing.
Yeah, I guess now since I met Alex, my idea of the voice, some of the things have stayed the same. I was like, good, I was right on that. I could feel, things right. But a lot of it's changed, and it's an easier way to look at it. It's a simple way that Alex would explain it. It's very, very simple.
And just for people listening, Alex, is this the guy you're working with currently?
Yeah.
What's his surname? Sorry.
Alexander Karyotis.
Yeah. People can. I'll probably put a link in the description of the video for people, but people can check him out.
He just made me go, because I came with him when I first met him. You can imagine, right? Taken from all the people I've taken from and all the books I've read. My wife's a doctor, and I get her books out, and I'm reading her journals, and I'm learning every muscle and every little thing, and I'm learning all about the performance from this book and all about this. And I go to him when I meet him, and I'm like, well, what about if I lower my larynx and relax here, and he's just like, shut up.
Yeah.
And I'm like, but wait, am I in head voice? Is it head voice, or should I stick my tongue out? But what is I should do? And I go, what about? I'm gonna straw my hand, perfect example. What about? And he's just like, for weeks, the first bunch of lessons, where he was just like, shut up, like stop. What does that have to do with singing? Stop it. And his whole mentality is, and there's a couple things that this whole technique, that the way it's been explained to me. We breathe, we support, we sing. So and then the vowel that we sing, plus the pitch we're on, and I usually go with intensity too, but those things right there equal the register you'll be in. It makes it really simple. You don't think about it. If you're doing a vowel and you're not messing with the vowel, like, coming from some speech level singing stuff, I was very down in my throat. Go, 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 go. Super down in my throat. And for years, I wonder why I couldn't sing. I could sing very high, but I couldn't sing in the middle, because I was weighing down my voice. And I was like, your tongue's pulling back and your larynx is down, jaw's not open, or jaw's too closed. And then you realize that, he would explain it like your larynx, or your throat, your palate, your lips, your jaw, your tongue. Those 5 things make up the vowel. Don't mess with them. Let them do what they need for the vowel. Let them do, because every vowel, as we know, if I say E, if I say A, my larynx goes boom. If I say oo, my larynx goes down. There's nothing I can do about that. But if I force it to do something, or force myself up, Now I've got to compensate somewhere for that force, and it just creates, So
Yeah.
I come at him with all the things I knew, man. I came out with every word I could think of, every, inner written slap, and he go, I don't care.
Yeah.
That was his mentality, and he would just go, okay, take a nice, let that breath in, keep that expansion. Are you buzzing? Or do you have a nice squealo? Is it buzzing? Not in your nose, but in your nasal pharynx. Is it there in front of your face, not back, in front of your face, every vowel? Are you doing those things? And then it's just the balance of air to the vocal cords. That's singing in general. That's all it is. Balance of
Yeah.
air to the vocal cords. So however you warm up, if you just think balance of air to the vocal cords and get a nice clean sound, that's going to work for you. It actually
Yeah.
is more simple.
I know that's the thing. I mean, I've this a lot of the time this year. I've been trying to. I've been progressing with my own stuff, but I've transitioned a lot between towards just this idea of like how simple can you make it? Because a lot of these natural singers, the reason they're so good is because the process in their mind is so simple and so basic that it makes all that, like you're saying, all that stuff, all that terminology, all that can help, but it can also create problems. It can create manipulations that lead you towards sounding a little bit kind of off, and you're not sure why. And it's like if you can just keep it real simple, and like you say, all of the articulation. Like when I talk, I'm not thinking, where does this vowel sit? I know intuitively, I know where those vowels sit, and so the question is like, how much of this can I just leave alone? And if I can leave like 95% of it alone and just work on the 5% that I actually need to make adjustments with, like that's going to have a much better outcome than fiddling around with all of that, half of the other stuff that really is just, if you can talk clearly, it's going to be there anyway. And yeah, man, it's and it's I think part of the reason for that, like you say, the overly darkened stuff that some of a lot of the SLS guys subscribe to. I think sometimes it can be useful if you've got a beginning student and every time they go up in range, the larynx gets dragged up.
But it
It
was
can be
my stupidity.
yeah.
It was actually my stupidity that made me go because I'm someone that is a creature of habit. I love um, like discipline, right? Like I get up in the morning, it's the same. You'll see me do the same things. Like brush your teeth, go drink the big glass of water, get your coffee out, hang out with the cats a little bit, hit the gym before my mind goes somewhere else. Just get in there and get it out. Get it done 15, 20 minutes. I don't care what it is. But then what's my vocal time? Do I have some time to practice before I teach? I'm very so when they would give me these exercises, I just took it too far. I just thought it was the be all end all. My bad.
Yeah.
My bad. You know what I mean? I'm not blaming anybody except myself. I'm an idiot. You know what I mean? So, it's, but no, honestly, you know what I mean? That's the way I feel. It's like you're a
I
dick.
feel like that.
I could have saved myself 20 years of back. Even though I was still gigging, maybe I wouldn't have been chronically hoarse forever because I could have created, made it better for myself if I just sat and thought for a moment about myself. Just think about it. Then,
Yeah.
now I think more like in a way, but it's actually less. Like I said, it's my warm up now as opposed to an hour where I used to warm up for my gigs for an hour. Now I'm beating myself up for an hour. Now my warm up is, I could do a 7-minute warm up, be ready to kill.
Yeah, I found like recently I do 5 minutes, not even just I do basically a lip roll and some like just closed mouth humming through the bridge, and then I'm ready to go. And it's when I was talking to a student earlier actually about just this idea of variance in the technique, and how if there's very little variance in the execution, as in it's just the same every single time, like how much confidence that can give a singer, because the amount that the technique drifts like off in their execution is so little that they can, it's like the coordination is like a barcode. It's like the same every single time. Whereas an intermediate singer, they can maybe do it right, like exactly right, but it will be like kind of 75, 80% of the time, and then the other 20% of the time they'll be kind of like losing a bit of compression or over squeezing a little bit, and that slight variance, even though the technique's good, that slight variance will limit their ability to develop as much confidence as a singer who has zero variance in the technique. And a lot of the simplification of the technique that singers tend to do towards the end of their journey, where they start getting rid of all the clutter that you learn in that intermediate stage where you're just trying to kind of figure out, how do I do this? A lot of the simplification helps with that minimizing that variance to where it's like, okay, if I hit it this way, it's going to be exactly the same every single time. Brett used to talk about this a lot, when it's just this concept of, it's easy to shoot, it's easy to, it's anybody can score a 3-pointer in basketball once, but like, can you do it 40% of the time? Is a completely different proposition. This is like, that, and
when I look at Alex and I just go, wow, he just doesn't matter how sick, doesn't matter how this, doesn't matter. It's just, I've asked him, do you ever have to go to, like, do you ever have any vocal issues, throughout your career? Do you have any vocal issues? He's like, no. I'm just like, it's like, and everyone, to get into the technique thing just real quick, because you talked about compression and a little bit of compression, you look at things a slightly different the way I do, and I just look at it like, so you hear every student that comes to you, right, goes, all right, man, I can't sing E4 to A4, but I can shout an A4, get it, hit the A4, right, you hear that all the time. So the issue is, what is the issue? The issue is there's a hole there that isn't, if it is not, so when people then getting into vowel, people go, I don't want to vowel modify. You go, I don't want to vowel modify. Blah, 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 blah. So you hear all this, but you go, listen, in order to correct that area and bring that up to the other areas, so you've got a seamless voice, you have to vowel modify as your voice building, so you can build in that register that's weak there. Once that register is just as strong there, you're good to go. So it's actually super simple. It's super simple, but a lot of people go, well, I got to change the whole way I sing. Yeah, you do. That's what lessons are. If it's that wrong. I mean, I've changed the way I've sung probably 3 different times, 3 to 4 different ways. Actually, the way I use stuff.
Yeah, I feel like every year I've had a sense of having to transition to better technique, because I've realized, okay, like most of it was good, but there was like some, like I say, there was a bit of variance that I hadn't noticed, which had like less than, like, not really nowadays, but like back in the day, I would, I'd go to a coach and they'd kind of put me in the center, and then over like weeks and months I would just drift, and then like I wouldn't even realize, because you just forget after a couple of weeks, you forget where you were 2 weeks ago. Now I can keep that, like, that shift like pretty much not there really, but it's like I feel like each time you're having to relearn every day, but also in a broader sense every year I felt like, okay, like it's not as good as I thought, or it's not as predictable as I thought, it's not as coordinated as I thought. And I think one of the advantages I've had, and you can probably speak to this a bit, is one of the tricky things as you get older and you're trying to figure this stuff out is you've got to earn a living. And like you were having to sing on the road to earn a living, and so you didn't have the option of, right, I'm going to go sit in my bedroom for 10 years and figure this out, because you've got to pay the bills.
Yeah, I was trying to do both.
Which makes it very hard, because you've got to balance your ability to change your voice and work on better technique with you've got to sing every day as well, and the problem with that can be that the new habit can actually be like way less reliable, way less predictable at first, even though it's got a better outcome further down the road. And so like balancing those two things can be really tricky, especially when you've got to pay the bills and this kind of thing.
It's also, and I don't mean, I want to interrupt because I don't want to lose the thought, but because you made me think about something. It's kind of like I said, I equate a lot of things to like, sports or stuff, because it's just easy. But it's kind of like the old saying, like I've been in gyms where you see a guy hitting the mitts with his trainer, and it looks amazing. It looks It's so sick, man. They're so fast. And he's ducking these. I don't even know how they're doing it. It's like a dance, right? The technique is super good. But guess what happens when he gets in the ring and spars and gets hit in the face? All the technique goes out the shitter. It's gone. It's gone. So a fighter's only as good as to where he gets hit in the face. Then the real fighter's going to come out. What's it going to be? Who's that guy? Is he going to try to stick to his technique? As much as he can, he's going to have muscle memory. He's going to stick to it. But guess what? You get to lean out of that technique. And that's the whole thing about with singing. Like when people say, well, I don't lose my voice. Huh? I can sing all day long. And I go, okay, come do a gig.
4 hours.
Come do one of these kind of gigs. And let me see you put the perfect technique on that. It ain't going to happen because putting a little rap, when you got to do Shook Me All Night Long, and you know, I could do it clean or I can do it adding a little rap. Well, adding that little rasp is not very good technique. It's gonna take away a little bit of that night, and it goes a little bit down. Now, and also singing that high, you know, you get tired. So, you know, this whole thing of perfect technique is great in your bedroom. It's all fine and dandy till you get hit in the face, and then you got to figure out. You know, that's my conundrum. Still to this day, when I practice my scales, and I'm not even perfect on my scales because I'm going for it. Like I'm like, well, I gotta go for it. I'm not gonna, because I know I'm gonna have to go for it live, so I have to go for it. So my go for it usually, oh, I pushed, oh, the vowel didn't stay straight, you know, and it's super fucking frustrating. But
yeah,
you know,
it is. It is frustrating, even when you feel like, right, I've got this. In fact, I found nowadays more so that a lot of the scales can be harder than singing the songs, just because there's so much to grab onto when you're singing the songs. But I like that analogy with the boxing because the best boxers, like your Floyd Mayweathers, do tend to stick to the technique more so, I guess, than the ones, you know, the fighters that, you know, that are in the exciting fights.
he's an outlier. Then
But then you think, you know,
outliers.
people like watching him because of that technical gift he's got, and you know the years of work that would have taken, but they don't necessarily watch him because he's massively exciting to watch.
Right.
And that's the thing.
I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you want an exciting fighter, they're not necessarily going to be sticking to their technique all the time. And I found that with singers. You know, you look at Jimmy Neko. He's whilst he's got amazing technique, like he pushes out of his technique a fair amount, and there's risks he's taking, and it's not, and it's exciting because he's close to the boundaries, man. And so it's like. There's a choice you've got to make. Like you don't necessarily going to be the best technical singer is necessarily going to be the most exciting singer to watch always.
Well, it's name me pop, rock, jazz singer who we would go, it's perfect technique. I can't name one because that's back in coming into one of your things about the questions is about style, and you can't. If you're saying technically great, you're going back to the old school way of singing, and you know, and the way you do your scales and everything's lined up and the formants are ringing perfect and everything's beautiful. And if you could put everything on a little thing and read it out and watch, oh, that's great. But when you're singing, it all gets thrown out in the waste. There's going to be, oh, I'm technically doing what I'm supposed to be doing, but it's going to, you know, each time takes a little bit away from the voice, because you're not doing what you're doing your scales, in other words.
Mm-hmm.
Can't, because how boring would that be? Oh my God, it would be. We wouldn't like any singers. What singer would you like? I can't name one. I can't name one. There's no such thing as perfect vocal technique in pop and rock. It's not going to happen. Joe Retta, who's an amazing rock singer, if other people saw him sing, they'd be like, oh boy, you know, he's going to hurt himself. Well, guess what? Joe's older than me, and he's still kicking. I talked to him, he says he's getting better with his age.
Well, I'm a fan of, what's his name, Glenn Hughes. He's a good example of a nice balance because he's got amazing technique under the hood, but you know for the gravelly stuff he will compromise that some, and but he knows what he's doing enough that he can get away with it because he can always go back to that foundation, which is very, very good. So like
he's out, but then again, now we're talking. That's again like Joe Retta outlier, Glenn Hughes outlier. I'm talking about the middle of the road, mostly every singer. There's guys that are outliers. You know, it's like that's like
Like,
the Michael Jordan, uh, you know, there's the outliers. We can't. I always I love greatness. You know what I mean? I love seeing greatness, true, and because I wonder about like how did it just everything was the perfect storm of like a Michael Jordan. It was a perfect storm of a great mind, a great physical body, a great learner, a great he had patience, and a great
well,
yeah. It's all of that, and that only comes around once in a while. You get those guys,
Well, he's
you
a
know.
good example because he had the genetic gifts and he also had some things that were probably at the time seemed like setbacks. Like he was dropped from his college team, I think, or what? I
Yeah,
think, and also back then they spent 3 years in university teams, which they don't do so much anymore. But the thing I got from him is that after he had to kind of grind for a while, and when he first came to the NBA for like I think 8 to 10 years, like he didn't win a ring, and so he was grinding trying to beat all the teams in the NBA that were I think the Pistons and the at the time it would have been the Pistons, the Celtics, the Lakers, these kinds of teams from the 80s that were the big teams then, and he was um, he was having years of struggle to get to that first championship, and that in itself, I think, probably is what propelled him to be as good as he was. Because I think if he'd have come out and won, 2 championships in his first like 3 or 4 seasons, I don't think he would have become the player he did. Like,
right. I understand that.
um,
Yeah, I think greatness sometimes comes, and you see it in like Allen Iverson. Greatness comes and they get bored, man. Like this is
yeah,
nothing. Yeah, I could just do this. Like when I sometimes when I talk to a singer like Alex or Joe Retta, and they don't necessarily really want to talk about singing because it's just well, this is what I do. Like that's let's talk about this. You know what I mean? They because that comes really easy to them. Whereas guys like me, we've struggled, and yourself probably as well. So we're still intrigued. I'm still intrigued by like, why can't I get this to work like his? Why? What is it?
yeah.
So
I totally agree, and I think I found as the years have gone on, especially probably the last 6 months, I've definitely found it harder to practice, which is probably the first time in my life that I've had that. I was like
yeah,
grinding out exercises for 10 years, and now it's like I can't find as much motivation all of a sudden because
of
it's
course not.
there's like less to figure out, and that's a challenge. Like, how do you stay? And I mean, Michael Jordan spoke about it. He took a year off when he went to play baseball, and his when his
Yeah,
father died, and I've heard him in interviews say like the hardest thing for him at that point after he'd won 3 championships, why come back is it was this idea of trying to find like the challenge in it because
for the love of it again as well. I mean, I struggle with that huge, huge.
yeah.
I know the performer in me still. I just want a good band. That's my big thing. And it's like where I live, there's not a lot of players. You know what I mean? So I've got a few guys, and I'm hoping this year we can put it all together and make a really cool, fun band that I love. Like that, I can't wait to go sing for. Like that's my goal. Is like I want to get out a lot again. But yeah, as far as my practicing, geez, like I said, I'll warm up for 7, 8 minutes and just teach my students. You know what I mean? And then if I'm working on a new song, if I feel it's going to be hard, all right, what's the high notes? What's the thing? Oh, no, that's easy. I got that, But I don't have that drive. I wish I did, you know? Wish I
Yeah, that
had.
when you start and you've got all that progress to make, and
You're
it's
young
just
and you're
different.
excited, Just getting older sucks.
Yeah, it's like we kind of covered quite a lot of this stuff, even though I've not done it specifically because one of the stuff I've done live performance was talking about differentiating between practice and performance, and we kind of did that when we were talking about the this sense of balance between the emotions and the technique and stuff and
You
things
got it.
like that. When this is one thing I wanted to ask you about, like I don't know how much you've suffered with like nerves or stage fright over the years or things like that. Like, how do you kind of mentally prepare yourself for a show?
I'll
Is it
tell you
just warming up, or do you kind of have a way you kind of get yourself into the right mindset?
so fun. I'll tell the first bad thing first, and then I'll tell you the fun stuff. The bad thing is, I thought about this question. Like, I am a horrible public speaker. Like, at my own wedding with my family, my friends, my wife's family and friends, I was so dry when I was supposed to give I couldn't. I drank 900 waters. It didn't matter. I was like, thanks everybody for coming. My wife's at ham, so I was like, here you go, honey. And she just went off. Like, I was like, phew. I don't know what that is. Like when I taught for David, Vocalize You, I knew I was going to be all these kids, and then I had to teach um, at a roundtable of all teachers and explain some stuff that I do. So I knew that was coming. They're both one after the other. It was like a half-hour break, and then I had to do the other. And when I was doing the first one, before I was doing it, me and my wife got there early. I brought Xanax with me. Didn't take it though, but I did bring it because I was like, honey, what am I gonna do? Like I'm gonna freak. Like I can't speak about this stuff. I'd rather sing, and then bring up a kid and take him. So I had a flask in our bag of tequila, because that's what I usually before a gig. I don't get nervous at gigs. Like, it's to me that's so much fun. Like I love it. So don't really get nervous. But anyway, so I had the flask, so I would just hit the flask, and then I went in the bathroom and warmed up. But as far as gigs go, because I'm usually very prepared, and I think that's the hugest thing. Just be prepared. If you're super prepared, there's nothing they can do. If I got to play guitar and sing, I have to double prepare. I have to remember these chords, all these songs, plus I got to remember the words. I will not bring lyric sheets. Maybe 4 times my whole career I brought lyric sheets of like the first dance for a wedding, because I'm like, I'm not learning this song. They just sent it to me yesterday, and I just get it in my head enough. Be prepared. Get rid of lyric sheets. That's the biggest thing. Just be there to have fun. I mean, the tequila thing at the Nerve one, when I got nervous, was probably just because when I play with the guys, when I play with the different bands, I warm up really, really good. When we do sound check, or I warm up after sound check, just check the mic, whatever. I warm up really good. I find a quiet spot, and I warm up really good, and then I go, come on, guys, let's go do a shot together. Even if it's just one shot, let's pretend we're just hanging out with the guys. I think it's super important, like to just realize, dude, what are you taking I was lucky too. I was in a band where we wear wigs, we wear costumes and dress up as nerds or rock stars or disco people. So number one, I don't have to be myself. So I'm not too nervous but when I have to public speak, I've got to be me. I'm a little self-conscious, I think. So that plays into that. So I think it's really important to just be over-prepared and realize, dude, it's just songs. It's just singing. Even if you suck, it doesn't matter. It doesn't. At the end of this game, you're going to go home at the end of the night. It doesn't matter. No, don't worry about it. Just be prepared and pay respects to the other guys that you learned the stuff that they learned. Make sure they learned it. Everybody's on the same page. With the Vocalize You thing, when I did that and a couple of the other seminars I've done, I've gotten a little tipsy just to get the nerves out. But the greatest thing about that was, like, once I started teaching, everything, because I was singing, and then the crowd was like, sing something. And I was like, thank you. Thank you for asking me to sing something, because now I just get to enjoy it.
Yeah.
That was the most
That's
important.
good.
Yeah, that was super important when someone finally asked me. Did like an hour and a half seminar, 90 minutes, and it was like into the last half hour, and someone went, can you sing something? And I was like, oh, why didn't you guys ask me this 2 hours ago? I would have given a concert. It would have been so much fun. But
I like what you were saying about the just this idea of, like you're saying, have a shot with the guys. Remind yourself, hey man, we're just hanging out and having a fun time. It's so weird just to say that, because I have this thing I've done more recently where if I've got a show, I used to be like super nervous, super quiet, wouldn't talk to anybody, and just be sat there waiting to play, like running through in my head all this stuff, all this junk, then go to warm up and like your head, like, and it's like, oh my word, just get out of your head.
get out of your head.
Because I'm like somebody who's absolutely addicted to thinking. When I grew up, like just totally in my head, like for years, like couldn't even get out of my head at all. So I had to like learn the habit of not being in my head. There's like been like half my journey as a singer has been learning not to be in my head, especially when I'm performing live. And so nowadays I'm like, I just talk to people, ask them about their day, try and get out of your head, and whatever strategy like I used to do that, every time I'm just out of my head and enjoying myself and I get on stage, it helps a lot with that tendency to go back into my head. because that being in my head is what really can kill your singing. Like even if you've worked on your technique for ages, if you start to get like in your head and like, oh my god, what are people thinking? Oh my god, all that stuff like will just clamp down and destroy your singing like nothing, like in a second.
Get super nervous. Like I would get nervous. You wouldn't notice I'd be performing, but say I had a bad week and my voice was rusty. I'm like, everyone's gonna. The moment I thought everyone was listening to me and got all in my head about it, I'd be like, I wasn't performing, and the guys like on the break would be like, "You all right tonight? What's wrong? You're not jumping around like a maniac." And I'd be like, oh, I'm not, huh? So I'd go do something, do a bunch of push-ups, do chin-ups. I'd find something to get my, and I'd come out the second set, what's going on? Body shots, just try to get, and even like, I did like, I've done a lot of high-profile weddings and parties. I did Drew Barrymore's wedding. I did Elon Musk's house a couple times. Like, these are high-profile gigs, and it was the same thing. When I got there, I was kind of nervous. On the way there, I'd be like, and then I'm singing, and Jimmy Fallon, I brought him up. Once I become me and just go, just get him up, hey, and then Scarlett Johansson, get up here, Scarlett. And you just realize, like, get out of your nerves, get out of thinking that everyone's watching you. They're not watching you. They're just there to enjoy themselves. You know what I mean? And that's like a big thing. Is I would be backstage like, oh man, what if so-and-so's here, who likes my voice and wants to record a record with me? The moment I started thinking that, I would like, there'd be no fun. So I'd just be like, dude, don't think that. Go do a shot. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man. I completely know what you mean. And that I think some people have that habit so bad, and that's all they know. And this is me when I started. That was all I knew. Like that thing we're talking about was my life. And I'm not even saying that as a joke. It wasn't just singing, it was my entire life was built around this, like, what are people thinking, and all this constant self-talk, which is basically why my voice was in a straitjacket when I started, like, because like everything just fed into that. And one thing I notice about naturals is like that really doesn't exist for them. At least if it does, it's very minimal. That self-talk might be there here and there, like, but it's like way more balanced it's way more balanced. They're able to balance being in the moment and just enjoying themselves, and being in the now with needing, when we need to think about the future and what's happening, like, and abstract thinking really is what it is we need to use it, I've got to plan ahead, I want to put money aside today to think about, save for the future. But that addiction to abstract thinking, I think, is what causes these severe type issues that the struggling people really have. Is they aren't able to be in the now, which is like what basically you'd have abstract thinking and concrete thinking, which is being in the moment. And these struggling singers are typically addicted to abstract thinking. They can't get out of their head.
I think a lot of it, I don't want to say that it's horrible. I think, healthy competition's good. It's fun. It's entertainment. But I think American Idol and all those shows really put a hammer on kids, man. Like, kids coming up, young guys coming up, you know what I mean? Because they think they're being judged.
Yeah, and they think I've got one shot, and if it doesn't work this time, like, I'm garbage. I'm out. Yeah. You never have a chance.
I think by doing more and more gigs, I mean, obviously, the more you do something, the less, that is going to get rid of a lot of the nerves, and just realize, don't take yourself so serious. Like, it's not just, if you practice and you're, you practice, you're disciplined about your practice, you practice with your band or whatever it is, the songs you're going to sing, then that's all you can do. There's no extra you can do. I don't enjoy the moment. I can't imagine I know the amount of times I've played some really cool festivals, and I'd be a little nervous, but my performance would be good, but I didn't stop to go be in the moment. Like, I missed, like, and it wasn't that I was nervous, but I wasn't in the moment. Because it was like all these people. So sometimes, like, like, probably like 10 years ago up to now, I would stop on the gigs and just be like, hold on a second. Just be like, how's everyone doing? Like, I really, really take in what's going on. Like, just be like, this is going to be, I want to remember this. I don't remember a lot of the gigs because I'd be a little nervous of who they were for, or if I was going to get more work out of this gig. That was another thing. You're making your money on it. Like, okay, hopefully the coordinators here, they're going to like us. I could give them a card, make sure they book us more. it's like you're all worried about these things, and it's like
And
it's not.
the worst thing is that all of that stuff is only going to affect that desired consequence negatively anyway. So in trying to help by self-talking and doing all that junk, it only makes it less chance to work anyway. So it's like you're literally killing your chance of success by trying to help yourself.
Uh, so,
It's
yeah,
just
that's
crazy. It's so crazy,
the
man.
saying for that. That I know. I can't think of it right now, but yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I like what you said about just taking in the moment. There's this girl I was watching recently who's written a whole book about this, but she's got this little trick that she talks about called the 5 second rule, where she just counts down like in her head 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and just resets her mind into the moment. And she talks about how basically that self-conscious loop gets like interrupted, and you kind of the focus of the mind goes back to the front side of the mind, the prefrontal cortex or something she calls it. But it's the same thing happening, man. It's the same thing. It's like you've got to get into now what you're doing, and like you said though, the ability to do that is partly dependent on your ability, because the better you get, the easier it is to not worry about the consequences, and so you're more able to be in the moment. And so whilst it's easy to say this, it's also the reality is like when I started, it was way harder for me to stay in the moment, because every time I did anything, it didn't go well for me, and so that encourages the urge to get out of the moment and start worrying. And so it's like a marriage between as your skill develops, you were able to develop this mental side of what you're doing a lot more, because you've got the predictability, and that's what builds the confidence and allows you to start being in the moment more. It's so weird how I don't really know what comes first. I guess is the thing I'm trying to get across here. Is like it it's very hard to know what comes first, the ability to stay in the moment or the technique, or if it, and I would say it's like this, almost like these two things work together, and they have to kind of come up at the same time. And yeah, sometimes I wonder, well, what comes first? Because sometimes it feels like, oh, if I just address the mental side of this, it works all of a sudden. But then you find later on, like, oh, but there's this technical thing that I can address that helps me more. And then it's like you never really can get a real concrete answer. It's like both of them matter, but and one feeds into the other. But I don't feel like one is really the I don't feel like one is the cause and one is the effect. It's more that they really both feed into each other, almost equally so. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to be a teacher. Come here. It's hard to be like a teacher and a performer. That's why you find a lot of performers aren't teachers. You know what I mean? Because it's the moment you're a teacher, you're going to be teaching. You're going to be scrutinizing yourself, and that's been hard. Like, yeah, I have to admit, all the years, like I've always, yeah, it's not a nervous like, oh, I'm not going to sing, but it's a nervous like, I gotta do good. I gotta do good. I gotta do good. I gotta do good. I can't screw up. I can't screw up. I can't screw up. I can't screw up. Whereas, do you think Britney Spears really gave a shit? No, but everyone loves her. So good, good. Like she's not sitting there worried about the technique versus the performance. She's worried about the performance,
Yeah.
and that will come shine through. You know what I mean? And that's what's tough about being someone that's into like singing, or being a coach, or maybe that someone didn't have it come not easy. I don't think anybody's got it easy. Still got to sing a lot. In order to be a good singer like Joe Redda's probably spent years in his bedroom before when he was a little tyke with a microphone, pretending he was the singers that he loved.
Yeah.
And I think that's but being a teacher, man, we're scrutinizing themselves every time I hit a bum note. You know what I mean? I'm just like, oh, come on, they didn't hear it, but I did. Or I won't listen to myself. I will never. People put up videos all the time. I get so aggravated as soon as I hear it. I'm like, oh, Jesus, that was horrible.
You feel like I listen to myself a lot over the years, and I nowadays I found I've gone back to stuff and felt like, man, that's not that bad. Nowhere near as bad as I thought it was.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
I've had stuff that I recorded like years ago that I've listened to recently, and I felt like, oh man, actually that wasn't anywhere near as bad as I thought. And if I'd have known what I know now, I would have realised, mate, you're kind of like, it's not that bad. It's nowhere near as bad as you think. You just got to keep working at it a little bit. It's gonna get better. And
Yeah.
back then I would be like killing myself, like feeling like I was just absolute garbage, like human waste, and like.
Yeah. I get it. It's hard to be that mind. You have the mind of a teacher as well as wanting to be a performer and a singer. It's hard. I mean,
Because you got to balance that out.
and who do we know that does that? Like who find me a successful singer? I mean, even Pavarotti didn't teach. He
Yeah.
wouldn't teach. You know what I mean? So it's like the greatest singers, Glenn Hughes don't teach. He's
Mm-hmm.
amazing. I would love to sit in a room with Glenn Hughes. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
does it? What would he say? Oh man, I know what he would say. Oh, you gotta feel it, man. You gotta feel the words you're singing.
Yeah.
That's what they all say. You know?
Yeah, especially the most gifted ones. Like the younger they learnt it, and the better they learnt it the first time. Like the less able they are to explain. Like I was watching this Miles Kennedy interview, and he was saying just this general thing about, oh, you've got to really connect with this song, and really, like, people just overrate technique so much. And I was like thinking, oh my word, like that must be so easy to say when you've got the execution that he has, which is like, second to none. He's a freak.
And he studied a bunch. Like,
Yeah.
a lot of those guys downplay the study. Like Sam Smith, great singer, doesn't downplay. He says, I do my exercises every day.
Yeah, yeah.
There is someone that does realize to keep my voice at this level, I've got to keep doing it.
I guess
you know,
it's easy. The better you get at technique, the easier it is to forget how important it is, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. Because
where you came from, right?
yeah, and when I think as well, depending on when you started, like now, the reason I don't take technique for granted as much as some of these great singers do, I think, is because I know what it's like when you have zero technique and how impossible it is to sing. No matter what a natural tells you, feel the song, excellent. Nothing is going to fix that fundamental issue of just having no skills. And whereas if you've never like you say, all these guys who are great have sung for years and years and years. But the process they went through is different, because they will learn it pretty much the right way from the get-go, rather than having to relearn like later on as drastically as some of the struggling guys do. And yeah, this it's easy to forget as well, like how important it can be, the technique, for somebody that's got none, and it's easier to take for granted. Like you say, a lot of these great guys will just say, just feel the song, just kind of do it. And it's like, well, like, hang on a sec, it's easy to say when you're Pavarotti, just do it. But
Yeah,
it's like,
to go along with that, I'm always telling students that come that maybe aren't that that don't sing a lot, and they're very beginners and they don't have any type of technique, so it kind of goes all over the place. A lot of times I won't teach them. I'll say, here, we'll do one lesson, and I'm gonna listen. This is what you should do in my opinion as a vocal coach. I gave you some exercises. Do them every day. Listen to the tape. Listen to how they go. Listen to what I was saying. Listen to it. Then keep on. Just learn 1,000 songs.
yeah,
Learn in the genre that you love. Just pump it through your ear every day. Even if you can't sing, if you got to sing in falsetto, just sing it in falsetto. Just do whatever it is to get the melody, how the melodies go. So now, I don't consider myself a great singer by any means, but if someone just gives me a song and says, hey, you got to sing this tomorrow for the wedding, I don't really sweat it, as long as I got enough time to learn the melody. And it takes me not too long. The words in front of me, I'm okay. I'm good. I'm okay to go. But that's only because I've learned 2,000, 3,000 songs. I mean, I can't imagine how many songs I've had to learn. It's crazy. And my friends are like that. Guys like Just Got Soto, great singer, sang for Journey. I mean, come on, who's gonna? He's a great singer. But like, with him, he's learned. Just since when you ask him about technique, he'll just say, "Hey, I grew up just learning songs, listening to the songs, and my favorite singers, Steve Perry, and this and that, and just emulate it and try to figure out different tricks."
And I
Ryan,
think when, sorry,
yeah, Ryan Shaw is another guy. If anyone listening to this podcast want to hear a really good soul singer, go check out Ryan Shaw. Um, I forget the name of the first record. It's called "We Got Love," maybe. It's fantastic, but he said he just grew up like locking himself in the bathroom. I sat with him for like 3 different days. He would lock himself in the bathroom, scream until he blew his voice out when he was a kid. That's how he learned to sing. My mother was mad at me. I'd be screaming at the top of my lungs to
the
stop that he loved. And
you
then
know, well, eventually something clicks.
there's something
One,
that's what he said.
yeah.
Something,
Once the yeah this I've had just the something that clicks is something that I've had year after year, every it used to be more frequent, but I still have it where like something clicks and I realize, okay, I can actually do it this way a little differently, and it's more reliable. But the this this learning process, I think when people are young, they, for some reason, whether it's they're just set up that way, they seem more easily able to pay attention to a little bit more detail in what they're hearing and what they're trying to mimic. And I think uh, as I've got better as an adult, really a lot of the time it's just realizing, actually, it's a little more detailed than I thought. Like, it's a little bit more nuanced than I thought. It's a little bit more subtle than I thought what I'm trying to do. And that's one thing that the younger people seem to pick up more intuitively, and I've had to think about more and figure out more. And I've had lessons when I've had lessons with coaches, and they've said, like, oh, it's pretty good, but you can actually, like, you can be a little bit more precise with this. And then all of a sudden, like, okay, man, this is like so much, you like something clicks. And but that process seems to be a little bit more intuitive for the youngers. I feel like that kind of that detail that they seem to find that the grown-ups seem to struggle with, because it's usually a case, what I found is with the grown-ups is like, it's pretty much kind of can be there, but it's kind of crude in the execution. Just like when a guitar player is like, their fingers are a little bit kind of messy looking. It's like that crude execution can kind of kill you with the voice, because you like over squeeze and it makes it feel weighted. And if you back off, it like just disconnects completely. Like there's not quite enough nuance there. It's kind of crude.
balance, right? The balance of the air to the chord.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of times I'll get students and I'll say the ones that I'm talking about, and they'll go, well, I'm doing all my exercises. I'm gonna go, were you learning songs? Because not one song do I know that goes ba da 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 da. I don't know one song that does that. That is weightlifting. That's what ba da 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 da. That's your weightlifting. Okay, depending on the vowel you're doing, in the area you're doing it in, it'll tell you the register that you're getting stronger. Like, tricep pull downs, I'm going to do curls, I'm going to do shoulder presses to get this whole thing working. But then the baseball player goes, I don't care if the baseball player can bench 800 pounds. He's got to learn to swing the bat, which is everything together. So that's why I'm always like, just go learn songs. Don't worry about, go through the humming and lip bubbles and do some scales like that I showed you to get through this area, and then throw it away, go listen and learn the words. See how fast you can learn a song without looking at it. Like, do things like that to get all those melodies. Then you can never be tripped up by a melody, unless it's like a crazy jazz singer, like Ella, she's gonna trip everybody up. So,
well, like you
know.
Yeah, and like you say, the thing is with singing songs is you're doing everything at once, and that like is why in one sense it can be so much harder than just doing one scale, like with one consonant and one vowel, because
and trying to stylize, you're trying to sound like the artist, you're trying to, there's all those things.
So many things.
That's singing. The other one's just voice building. That's
like you say, it's lifting weights. It's being good at one particular part of your voice. It's right. It's like, okay, I've got really strong. What's this muscle here?
The bicep.
Yeah, I've got super strong. It's like I've got super strong biceps.
No tricep.
But no tricep. Or, that's what it'd be like if you've got, like, I don't know, like you've got super powerful mix, but you can't do falsetto or, whatever. But it's like, you're just building up muscles in your arm and learning to use them. But, like you say, if you're having a throw or a specific motion, there's a lot going on.
That's more, it's another skill. Like, this is a skill. especially if you're going through like the passaggio and stuff and you don't know how to get through. And that's why I like the Burton Coffin stuff, because he separates everything. Goes, work on your chest, work on your upper chest, work on your mixed voice, work on vowel register, work on the falsetto. He's like, then go sing, because everything then as one. So mix is always, with most people, mix. They don't have a mixed voice yet. They've got to get the skill, because the chords are doing something different. I don't know what they're doing that's different, but they are doing something different. So you got to get that level up to the upper that was right behind it. Now they're good. Okay, good. How about this up here? Okay, falsetto's good. Okay, now look. Now we have this. You know what I mean? That's what the exercising is for. But now, okay, now you got to go sing.
Yeah.
Can you go sing arms. Right.
Yeah. You got a bunch of consonants, bunch of vowels, a melody that's like, maybe it goes all over the place, maybe it's like maybe it's just semitones, like, and you got to, there's an infinite amount of variables in that once you get into singing songs, because I bet all the time where I've sung loads of songs, I learn a new song and it's like, like I know what I've got to do, but I've not quite, not necessarily sung that particular interval on that particular consonant with that particular vowel, or like the lead up into it, or just something that might be a little bit different about that particular transition from one note to the next, and that will be like, okay, I gotta, like, there's something there I gotta execute a bit better, and that you won't find that really in a scale, because there's just not as much variation in a scale. It's just as simple as that. And you're so right. Like my practice over the years is as much. I mean, I've been criticised over the years because a lot of the videos I put up are just focused on scales and how do I connect chest to head and this stuff for beginners. But my practice day to day has always been probably 45 minutes to an hour of scales, and then 1 to 2 hours of rehearsals, basically every day. So I've always had that sense of balance, because I came into it being a musician first, so I wanted to do that. But a lot of the time, I've found that execution has got vastly better, but it was like you say, it was figuring out how to throw the ball, like how to do it all at once, and it's very hard.
The more songs you learn, the less surprise you're going to get.
Yeah.
Right? You're not going to get that interval. Oh, I did the same interval on that song. I remember that. It's easy. Oh, same vowels. Oh, different vowels. Same thing.
And so like you say, the experience as well. If you've done thousands of shows, thousands of scales, you've done it for 10 years, nothing's going to trip you up compared to. Yeah.
What trips me up is trying to learn, like I've been trying to learn arias, slowly, very slowly. I only know like one. But that trips me out. I've never really listened to classical music up until a couple years ago. So that is like making me feel like I'm an absolute beginner. I don't know what I'm doing. You know what I mean? Plus you're using the voice slightly different. So that's a whole different animal. But it's cool. Like I wish I could get into that more. I just don't have the time as when you're a kid. When you're a kid, when you're younger and you're your teens and even through your 20s, you're not married, bills, you have all these things. You've got all this time and you get excited about something. Sure, I'm excited about learning to sing a few arias, but I don't have the time, the energy and time to put that in that right now. Only as much as I can. So I try to get a little bit every week. I can't do a little bit. I can only do a little bit every week. Whereas when I was a guitar player, 7 hours a day as a kid. Don't take that away.
One thing as well, I was talking recently with a guitar teacher who I'm friends with, and we have kind of similar discussion just about how when you really if you can become a specialist as a guitar player or a singer, there's really no way to, and that's what's quite impressive about what's his name, the guy you're working with,
Alex.
Alex, he's found a way to get great at two tricky, very hard styles, probably the two hardest technical styles to master, I'd say, which is rock and classical, and he's figured those both out. But just to figure out one of those in a lifetime is mega hard, and so it's like you
got to have two lifetimes almost. It feels that.
Yeah, and so at some point you've got to choose whether to specialize or not. And if you do specialize, it's better to be really good at a narrow skill set than it is necessarily to be average at everything. I feel like a lot of the time, and it's very hard.
you want to be a real artist, if you really want to be I want to be a rock star, I want to be a pop star. Like if you really, then you got to do what it is that you do, and not really worry about technique, just enough to go. Well, I can do this 5 nights on a tour. I'm not gonna blow myself out. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
That's all you really got to learn about. Like I love showing this. I'll show you this little thing. Like you see Alex, if you go online and see him sing the Reconded on YouTube, right? So he does that beautiful aria, sings it great, old school. It's beautiful. But I never put this up. He'll probably kill me if he says this, but I don't care. This is when I brought him over to Dave Stroud's house a long time ago. I said, God, he was in LA. I said, let's go over to Dave's. He lived we were in Marina Del Rey and Dave lived in Venice. And I was like, Dave lives like real close to here. Let's go over there. So I called Dave. I said, Dave, I want to bring my coach over. I always wanted you to meet him. Went over, and this is him singing for Dave. Like, we've been out drinking beer and eating tacos all day because he loves, when he comes to LA, he wants to go to taco places. So, and he just, no warm-up. I was with him. There was no warm-ups. And he just sings this. This is,
go down in the city, and the sun shines on the bay.
like it's nothing.
Ooh, I wanna be there in my city. Oh,
It's disgusting. Like I laugh at
It's
it.
disgusting.
Show this. I don't care if he kills me. This is just,
you know what the?
you know what the high five?
It's so. Oh,
And it sounds almost funny because the pitches are dead on, which they're not on the record. They're not dead on. These are, it's unbelievable. You know what I mean? It freaks me to this day. I just go, God, I could never sing it that. The look on his face.
It's just like
And-
nothing. Yeah.
Like
So efficient. It's like pure
Like-
like.
Oh, every gig I've done, I've had to sing that. I'm just like, I'm gonna make it or not.
Oh man, it's awesome. Yeah, that's great. That's a good way actually to finish this up. We've done like an hour and a half. It's been really
Yeah.
interesting, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much for doing this chat. I'm going to I'll throw this up on my channel in the next few days, and it'll be interesting content for people. I'll put a link to your website and your YouTube channel as well, Daniel, so people can check you out. If you got anything you want to kind of close up on, or any closing thoughts, or you just want to kind of say goodbyes?
Yeah, I guess say goodbye. I think we hit everything. You know what I mean? I think we all the questions we pretty much got on.
Yeah, it's funny. I planned this last time with Singwise and Karen, her name is, and we went through it a little bit more ABC. But the thing is with coaches, I think once you get going and you've got because nobody understands this day to day. Like if all this stuff we're talking about, if I take 1,000 people, like 999 of them will not be able to have this conversation. So like when you're chatting to somebody who really kind of gets it and has been involved in it for a long time, it's like it's a pleasure. Do you know what I mean? It's a pleasure. So it's a great thing, man. And without the internet, like I wouldn't have had this. I wouldn't have had this chance.
That's amazing. That's why I've been recently. I want to do a podcast. I don't think I'm going to do a video one, but when I get around people, I'm going to record. Like Alex will be in town the end of this week, so I said, be ready. We're just going to sit in the hotel room and we're just going to talk, like just not too long, just talk about some stuff. And I want to do that with like my buddy Joe Retta, which I hope he does. He's pretty shy, but hopefully he'll do it. He's very, very humble, but I would like to do it with more people. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. It's awesome, man.
Yeah, it's fun. All right,
sweet.
Man.
Well, we'll catch up again soon, Daniel. Lovely to speak to you, and thank you very much. And
asking me to do it too. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, man. Great to see you. Cool. Take care, mate. Bye.